You know, the most competitive businesses out there are making this huge shift. They're moving away from just reacting to what's already happened, and they're learning how to anticipate what's coming next. So today, let's explore how big data is turning this kind of predictive intelligence into an absolute must-have.
I love this question because it really gets to the heart of the matter, right? Most companies spend all their time analyzing the past, last quarter's sales, last month's web traffic, you name it. But the real winners, the ones who are going to dominate, are the ones who can confidently predict the future.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the foundation, the big data challenge. Then we'll climb what I call the analytics ladder, pop the hood on the predictive engine itself, and most importantly, see how it all translates into actual profit. And then we'll wrap up with how to keep that engine humming and what the future holds.
Okay, first things first. Before you can even dream about predicting anything, you've got to understand the raw material you're working with. And that, of course, is the data itself.
So the foundation for any good data strategy really comes down to what we call the 5 V's. First, you've got volume, just the mind-boggling scale of data from things like IoT sensors and social media. Then there's velocity, the incredible speed it's being created at. Variety means it's coming in all shapes and sizes, structured databases, messy emails, even video. Veracity, now this is a big one, is all about how much you can actually trust that data. And finally, value. What's the potential to turn all this digital noise into a real, actionable insight?
And this quote, I think, just hits the nail on the head. While all 5 V's matter, if you're a leader, you need to be obsessed with veracity and variety. Why? Well, think about it. If your data is garbage, or if it's coming from a dozen different systems that don't talk to each other, even the world's best algorithm is going to give you junk. Getting these two right is by far the biggest hurdle.
Okay, so let's say you've got a handle on your data. The next step is to start moving up the analytics ladder. This is really a journey from just basic reporting to some pretty sophisticated automated actions. So think of this like a journey, laid out in 4 key stages. Most companies honestly are stuck in the past with descriptive analytics, just figuring out what happened. Some make it to the present, using diagnostic tools to understand why it happened. But the real magic, the real transformation, starts with predictive analytics, when you start forecasting what might happen. This is the bridge that lets you stop reacting and start shaping what's next.
But let's be super clear about this. Prediction? That's not the final boss. It's not the end game. The real prize, the ultimate value, is in that final step. Prescription. This is where your systems don't just warn you about the future, they automatically figure out and execute the best possible response. We're talking dynamic pricing that adjusts on the fly, or preventative maintenance that gets ordered before a critical machine ever breaks down.
So how in the world do you actually build an engine powerful enough to do all this, especially at a massive scale? Well, let's take a look at the technology that makes it all happen.
For a long time, the big data world was really a 2-horse race. Or maybe a 2-train race. You had Hadoop, which you can think of as the reliable heavy-duty cargo train. It's affordable, it scales, and it's fantastic for chewing through enormous batches of data stored on disk. But then Spark came along, and it's the bullet train. By processing data right there in memory, it can be up to 100 times faster. Absolutely essential for the real-time world we live in now.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper here. You can see Spark's edge in real-time processing and its built-in machine learning capabilities. But look at that third column, Cloud Data Warehouses, or CDWs. This is where the whole industry is moving. And their killer feature? Separating storage from compute. What that means is you can instantly spin your processing power up or down on demand, which gives you a level of flexibility that's just a total game changer.
And look, the market numbers, they absolutely back this up. The cloud analytics market is projected to grow at a massive compound annual rate of over 27%. It's a clear signal. Businesses are voting with their wallets for the agility and the elastic scale you can only get from the cloud.
All right, now for the part everybody really cares about. What's the actual ROI? What are the tangible, measurable results? Let's look at some real numbers. Okay, first up, finance. In this world, speed is literally everything. The old rule-based systems for finding fraud? Way too slow. By using machine learning to analyze transaction behaviors in real time, financial companies are now catching fraud 58% faster. That is a huge, direct hit to the bottom line.
Here's another huge one. Financial institutions are jacking up the accuracy of their credit risk models by 25%. And what I love about this example is that it's not just about a smarter algorithm, it's about getting better data.
pulling in alternative sources like utility bills and rent payments to paint a much, much fuller picture of a person's creditworthiness. And let's do one more to really drive the point home. Companies are now improving their cash flow forecast accuracy by 30%. That means way smarter capital planning, and it means they don't have to rely on expensive short-term financing nearly as much. That's real money saved.
So, you've done it. You built the model, you deployed it, and it's making you money. Great, but the work isn't over, not by a long shot. In fact, you're just at the beginning of a whole new operational challenge.
This chart, this right here, it reveals a pretty shocking truth in the world of data science. A staggering 80% of the time spent on any predictive project isn't on the cool stuff, like building fancy models. Nope. It's spent on data preparation, collecting it, cleaning it, getting it ready. This is the single biggest bottleneck in the whole process, and it's why automation is so incredibly critical.
And even after all that work, once your model is finally out in the wild, you've got to watch out for this silent killer. It's called model drift. It's what happens when the real world changes, but your model doesn't. The new data it's seeing no longer looks like the old data it was trained on, so its predictions get worse and worse. It's like trying to navigate a new city using a map that's 5 years out of date. It's just not going to work for long.
So for our final section, let's look ahead. Let's talk about where this is all going. A future where our predictive systems have to be not just smarter, but a whole lot safer and more responsible too.
So, what's next? Well, you've probably heard of it, Generative AI. And it is a total game changer for this entire field. Most importantly, it's a huge weapon in the fight against that 80% data prep problem we just talked about. But it also democratizes the whole process, letting people who aren't data scientists ask really complex questions just by typing in plain English.
But, and this is a really important but, as these systems get more and more powerful, the risks get bigger too. A huge one is algorithmic bias. This is what happens when the data you feed a model reflects historical prejudices. The model learns those biases and then reinforces them or even makes them worse, leading to really unfair outcomes in things like hiring or loan applications.
And this brings us to the just incredibly complex challenge of AI governance. It's not straightforward. In fact, sometimes you're faced with a really tough trade-off. For example, when you try to force a model to be fair across different groups, the techniques you use to do that can sometimes make it easier to identify individuals within those groups. So in trying to solve a fairness problem, you can accidentally create a privacy problem. It's a real balancing act.
So that's where we'll leave it. The technology, it's here. It can predict the future with an accuracy that's honestly a little startling, and it's only getting better. The opportunity is absolutely immense, but it comes with an equal and maybe even greater measure of responsibility. The defining question for leaders today is no longer, can we predict the future? It's, are we ready to act on it? And are we prepared to govern it wisely?